This is a front bumper insert from a Honda year 88 to 91 Civic wagon. Customer states that they use an amber and white bulb, so they would like this insert to be clear so they can use the turn signal as a fog lamp when they're not indicating in amber.
My name is Eric Strebel. I'm an industrial designer. Welcome to my channel about product design and making.
Do you ever get home with all your things, but you have nowhere to set them? So it all just ends up in an ugly, disorganized, and hard to work with pile like this, causing you unneeded stress? Well, don't let it ruin your life. Get an Alfred backpack hanger today.
This video's sponsor is Giga. It's one of my new manufacturing partners. I create the CAD, I upload it, I specify the material that I want, I pick the vetted supplier that I like, kick off the project and pay, communicate with them if they have any questions, wait for the part to show up, and boom, you get something like this. Check them out for your next project. Giga.io. Oh, I love saying Giga.
This is what the lens turn signal looks like on the front bumper of this Honda. You can see the lens gets inserted into this housing here, and normally there's a clear bulb that's in there, and then the lens sits on top of that. But in this case, the client has a alternating LED that alternates from amber to clear, and you can kind of see that here. So on the other side, the lens has been removed, and it glows white when he's not using it like this. So obviously this would normally be orange, and so for him to use his bulb, he needs to have these lenses be clear. All right, Wyatt is going to build a mold box out of some foam core. So usually we don't make our boxes out of foam core. We make them out of something a little bit more substantial, like a piece of wood, or we use our magnetic mold boxes, something like that. But in this case, we want to make something quick and easy, and we're going to make it out of this foam core, and Wyatt is cutting out the pieces for the four sides of the box here, as you can see. All right, let's back things up a little bit. There's a much more efficient way to build a box like this than what you saw Wyatt do.
Let's use the side that's square already, straight and flat. We're going to use the long side. Instead of making two separate cuts here, we're going to do a long cut here. So let's measure that out. Now you can use this to put the square up against here to measure correctly to that edge. And I can see, you know, it's not the straightest. But let's mark this at 7. You can also mark it with your knife. You can come down here, and we're going to mark the same thing with a 7 here as well. Now, the idea here is that we want to make one cut, not two cuts. If you want the whole thing to be straight and square, make one cut so they'll all be the same. Line that up. Make sure you have a nice sharp knife. You're going to press down. We're not going through the whole way. We're probably going down about halfway, 3/4 of the way. Then we'll come back with the second pass and make that final cut. And this piece, now we can cut our pieces from this piece where it's all the same size, and we've simplified the amount of cuts, the amount of work that we have to do, and we make things more efficient and speed things up. Now you can come in here with this and you can make your cross cuts to make all your parts the same size. Mark this with the X-Acto. I'm going to just push through the paper, take my square, put it up against that. And make my cut. So there's no pencil involved. Now we've got two pieces that are the same size. This is not a particularly great sort of measuring tool like this, right? You can't go to the edge and measure very well. It's awkward, so I prefer going to this ruler. Go here to the 65. Just hold that in place. Take the right angle. Second cut all the way through. Now the nice thing about this machinist square is you'll see that the shoulder here is less than the thickness of the foam core. It makes it ideal tool for cutting foam core. And I can feel this thing is starting to get dull. It's probably going to be my last cut on there. Now we've got our 4 pieces for our mold box. And this is much faster, much quicker, much more efficient, and much more accurate. They're all the same height as well.
Now, back to our regular scheduled program. Wyatt's going to tape up the pieces of the foam core around the 3D printed splitter board, and I'll talk a little bit more about the 3D printed splitter board afterwards. And we tape everything together so that we can unwrap it from one side and easily put it together. And the tape is enough to hold things together. We use a little bit of paste wax on the foam core just to keep the silicone from seeping into the wood. Wyatt's going to clean the lens a little bit here with a little bit of, I don't know, Windex or something like that, just to clean the part up and get it nice and get it ready for molding. So this is the 3D printed splitter board with a registration mark in it. Here you can see the one corner is curved, and we have some little feet, raised feet, so we can raise this thing up in the middle of the mold. I'm going to put a little bit of white glue on the feet just to make sure everything stays together and it doesn't fall apart. Now we can take the original Honda lens and we're going to apply a little bit of white glue down at the bottom, and this is going to seal it and prevent silicone from seeping underneath the part. At least that's the plan, and we're going to let that cure really well. Now on the sides we have these little snaps, and we need to put a little bit of clay in here to prevent silicone from getting underneath there. All right, we're going to mix out some Silicone Inc GI 300. This is a Shore 50 hardness silicone, so a little bit harder than we normally use. We use a 1040, which is a 40 Shore hardness, and that's because this piece is pretty shiny and we need to make 10, but we'll end up making 20 because I know we'll have rejects and I want to make sure the surfaces stay good on the mold, so we use a little bit harder silicone. All right, let's demold the first half, and the mold box comes right off, and that has a lot to do with the wax that we put down first. We have a little bit of flash that's come through, but we can trim that off pretty easy. Now, the reason the splitter board has a hole in the middle is so that we can remove the splitter board while keeping the part in the first half of the silicone mold. And we stick a piece of PVC down the middle, and we're able to remove that splitter board by applying some force to the part, and the part stays in there and no issue. Apologies, we do not have any footage of the second half of the mold. Sorry. To make these parts, we're going to use the BJB WC85. This is our go-to clear resin, UV stable, all of that stuff. We'll mix it up, put it in the vacuum tank to degas it, and we'll pour some in the mold. You can see it start to weep out the holes here. Let's see what we get after it cures under pressure for 60 psi. So this is one of the first parts coming out of the mold, and it's not quite well formed. We're having some issues getting air trapped where we pour in at the top. So we're going to try to pre-fill the mold a little bit to see if we can't alleviate that issue. And we'll pour another one. We'll see how this one comes out. They look good here, but there's air that's getting trapped. We use some compressed air to help loosen the part and make it come out of the mold. The wings on the side there are pretty deep, and so it takes a little bit to get these parts out of the mold and free. So you can see we're getting some trapped air here at the top. It's not really good. And so I have to fix this problem, and we need to add some vents. I'm just removing the old vents, or the old plugged up vents. Here's a piece of brass tubing that I've sharpened on the end. And we're going to poke this into the mold, and we are going to make a new vent that we're going to puncture through the silicone. Look at that. We've made a vent, and we're going to do that on the other side. This is where the pour sprue is, where we're getting trapped air. Now the mold has started to break down here as well after a few parts, and we have to carefully piece these pieces back into the mold. This is where the tabs are for the lights there on the top and the bottom. We'll close the mold, and we'll make a new part, and we'll see how successful we are with the new vents in place. So mix up some more resin, A and B. All right, let's mix up those two halves really good, A and B, scrape those sides really well. We'll get that into the pressure tank. We'll get that into the vacuum tank, and we'll degas that really well to get all the air bubbles out, and then we'll pour that into the mold. Let's take a look. Yes, so you can see those new vent holes, and there's little air trapped in there, kind of bubbling out. And so those vent holes are working as they should to vent out the air that gets trapped in there where the resin gets poured into the mold, hopefully alleviating our problem. So let's demold this. Let's take a look at the part. All right, it's in there pretty good. Oh, look at that. That's a good part. It's all cleaned up. And this is compared to the original part. Very nice. Very nice. So we just need to make 10 more, and we're done. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so. Make sure to hit the bell so you get notifications every time I have a new video. Don't forget to follow me on social media at Botzen Design. I'm now on Blue Sky, and unfortunately still on Instagram. Rock on. Don't forget to check out the t-shirts and hoodies in the merch shelf below. Click here to check out some of the other design and making videos that I have that you might enjoy.